Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons giving wisdom on how to vote. All right, so this has never happened before. I have never used Dungeons and Dragons to help me make a voting decision, a U.S. Voting decision, to vote, right? And I've never done that before, right? And so, and hasn't happened, right? And the reason why is generally I vote according to my values, you know what I mean? But increasingly, it is getting extremely hard to vote in America. And one of the reasons why is there's a lot of people who are claiming to be things that they aren't, right? So right now we have an important electoral race between John Fetterman in Pennsylvania and Dr. Mehmet Oz. Okay, so the way this whole and at this point, Dungeons and Dragons is help. At this point, I am going to vote for one of these candidates, and I'll tell you in a moment. I am going to bury the lead on this one. So I'm going to vote for one of these candidates, and my vote is going to come from my experience at the Dungeons and Dragons table. All right, and I'll explain. So I'm going to get you all the way there, right? And I'm not telling you to do this. I'm telling you this is the first time this has ever happened for me. I'm going to try it. I'm going to tell you how it works out, right? And then, but at this point, I have reached a point where Dungeons and Dragons is helping me vote, right? So let's get all the way there. All right, so this electoral race started probably 9 months ago, where I rode past a sign and it said Dr. Oz, Pennsylvania, right? And I was like, whoa, what? Wait, is that the Dr. Oz? And then I had a conversation with my wife. I was like, is Dr. Oz running in Pennsylvania? And she's like, I think, and I was like, the Dr. Oz, the famous one who sells a bunch of medical stuff? And she's like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, why? Like, you don't live in Pennsylvania, right? And the reason why is, we don't have any there are no celebrities who live in Pennsylvania. Like we got a few athletes, I think, but there's like close to zero celebrities who are like, I'm from Philadelphia. Actually, there is one, but the one we have is very problematic right now. Will Smith is from Pennsylvania, West Philadelphia, born and raised, but it's hard to claim him right now, right? Like he just had to slap, right? So generally, and that's the other thing is, I know. But like when Will Smith says, I used to live in Pennsylvania, I'm like, you totally did, because everywhere I go, I see a sign about you saying, hey, Will Smith scratched his butt at this church, right? Like, he's like, okay, which is cool. Actually, I was on a bicycle ride, and I came across the church, and they had literally a gigantic mosaic of Will Smith on the side of their church. Like it was like, hey, Will Smith was here, and I was like, that's really cool. This is before the slap, so it was cool then. All right, so I was like, Dr. Oz don't live in Pennsylvania, and the reason I know is like, we don't have that many celebrities, so the celebrities that we have, we know them. We're like, and I was like, there's no way, Dr. Oz has lived here all this time, and I ain't ever run across anybody saying Dr. Oz was here. And like, this is the thing, like here, like the Charcoal Pit. I live near a place called the Charcoal Pit. It's a burger joint. It's a very good burger joint. It's a classic historical burger joint, right? And President Barack Obama sat in one of the booths, right, in the Charcoal Pit, right? Like, and actually ate a burger. And you could go there now, and the waiters and waitresses would be like, you could say, I heard Barack Obama ate here in this restaurant. Is that true? And they're like, they will walk you to the booth and say he sat in this booth. His butt was right there. I'm like, that's cool, man. That's really cool. So I can tell you right now, Dr. Oz. So this is my humble opinion. Dr. Oz ain't never lived in Pennsylvania, right? And that's why I was shocked to say he's running in Pennsylvania. And my wife was like, yeah. I was like, don't you have to be in Pennsylvania to do that? And she's like, yeah, you do. But they're saying and I'm like, he ain't no Pennsylvania. I'm like, like you and I have been living here for, we've lived in Pennsylvania since 1997, and we only didn't live, I've lived in Pennsylvania like 45 years of my life. Maybe 42. right? So, like, I've lived in Pennsylvania for 4 decades, spread across different periods of my life, and I had never heard Dr. Oz's name before this, right? So, and he's famous, so I should have, right? So, Dr. Oz don't live in Pennsylvania, in my humble opinion. He can tell you whatever he wants, on his campaign flyer, but I'm like, no, that ain't cool, man, right? So, and now I was like, oh, great, Hollywood liberal comes and to run as Democrat. My wife's like, no, he ain't running as a Democrat. He's Trump endorsed by conservatives. And I was like, what? Wait, what? This Hollywood elite is the Republican pick, and not just the Republican pick, the Trump pick. I was like, what what are you talking about, right? It was a very like, wait, what? So here's my point, right? Dr. Oz, he is running for the Republicans, right? Now, I want the Republicans to sweep everything, right? I want the Republicans to sweep every single thing in this midterm, and I want them to win the presidency in 2024. And the reason why is we got to get life back to normal, right? And so I want to brutally punish the Democrats for putting us on the brink of World War III for 7 months, for making everything I buy pretty much twice as much as it cost 7 months ago, and for taking one plague and turning it into 3, right? For taking American life and making it suck. I want to brutally punish every Democrat in this country and for allowing crime, my bike just got stolen, to run rampant across every state, right? I'm like, y'all's Democrats, you gonna pay, right? And I think that I am prototypical. I am quite typical, as our special Dungeons & Dragons word, typical, typically, right? Typical of American voters right now. We savagely want to punish the Democrats at the voting polls for breaking American life in half, right? So I was like, wait, I got to vote for Dr. Oz, Hollywood elite, who, in my humble opinion, has never lived in Pennsylvania and is a rhino, a Republican in name only, like not even remotely a Republican. So this dude is nothing he claims to be, in my humble opinion. Not a Pennsylvanian, not a Republican, right? And you're telling me I need to vote for Dr. Mehmet Oz, for this electoral race in Pennsylvania, right? And I was like, yeah, what? So then I was like, well, who's he running against? So I look at John Fetterman. John Fetterman, guy wears a hoodie. I love that. I actually, and this is a big deal. Like, why is it important that a politician should wear a hoodie? Because it's important that Americans know that somebody who wears a hoodie can be a leader. You can be a leader wearing a hoodie and not be Mark Zuckerberg, right? A regular blue-collar guy can be a leader. I love that. I love John Fetterman, that he wears a hoodie. It's like people talk about it all the time. He looks like a regular Joe because he is a regular Joe. He's literally, just a regular person. And he's running for, rather than Dr. Mehmet Oz is not a regular person. First of all, he's a doctor, right? Put him in 1% of the earning, and he makes more than regular doctors would, right? Second, John Fetterman is a regular blue-collar worker, right? And he's running as a leader, right? Now, then let's talk about John Fetterman's politics. I hate his politics, right? Right now, especially right now. I'll tell you right now, I used to be a lot. And I'm telling you, this is America right now. I used to be like, yeah, if somebody commits a crime, we should be understanding. My bike got stolen. I ain't there anymore. I'm from my porch, right? They stole my bike off my porch. I want punishment. I want it brought. Right? I'm no longer in the, hey, we're okay with the amount of crime we have, right? I want tough on crime. Fetterman is not even remotely tough. Fetterman is soft on crime, okay? Then the other thing is Roe v. Wade. He is pro Roe v. Wade. I'm not pro Roe v. Wade. That ain't going to help me, right? That's not good, right? So I don't like his politics, right? So then I'm like, well, okay, and wait a second. Slow down. You're not voting for Fetterman, right? And the reason why is it's time to punish the Democrats, right? And by the way, I have voted Democrat in the past. I voted for President Obama twice. And in this last election, I have never voted for Trump. I'm not a Trump voter, right? I voted for Andrew Yang in 2020, and I voted for a independent party in 2016. All right. So let's get all the way there. Okay. So basically, so I'm like, is John Fetterman ain't going to uphold my Christian values, right? So you got to vote Republican because they'll uphold your Christian values. And I'm like, wait a second, that's Dr. Mehmet Oz. He is a Hollywood elite. There's no way he's going to uphold any of your Christian values, right? Like, it's absurd, right? Same thing with Trump. The reason why I don't vote for Trump is Trump isn't a Christian, right? The reason I know this is they asked Trump, are you a Christian? And he said, of course I'm a Christian. I go to church every Sunday. That is the most confirming answer that you are not Christian ever heard, right? Going to church every Sunday does not get you to heaven, does not make you a Christian in any remote way, right? In fact, somebody I care about very deeply sat their butt in church for 35 years, and I will not see them in heaven. I know that for a fact, right? Because how do you know a Christian? They'll say, just say, hey, how do you get saved? And they'll say, there's only one way to get saved. You get saved by the blood of Jesus Christ. You have sinned. You ask Jesus Christ. You say, hey, I'm a sinner. Please save me and reconcile me to God, and believe it. Amen. Right? Like that's it. That's how you get saved. And if they give you any answer but that, they ain't a Christian, right? You don't get to, only through Jesus Christ you come to the Father, right? So Dr. Mehmet Oz is not a Christian. He ain't gonna uphold any of my Christian values, right? So at that point, I'm like, well, okay, so I got this guy, Dr. Mehmet Oz. I don't like him for any reason. I think he is actively gaslighting people. It's in my humble opinion, he is actively gaslighting people. He's not even remotely a Republican, and he is absolutely not even remotely a Pennsylvanian in my humble opinion. So what reason is there to vote for him? And there's exactly zero reason, right? So I'm like, well, what reason is there to vote for for John Fetterman, right? You know he's not going to uphold your Christian values, but then you're like, okay, wait, I know Mehmet Oz ain't going to uphold my Christian values. There's one reason to vote for John Fetterman, and it comes straight from Dungeons and Dragons, right? So when I was noodling on who to vote for between Mehmet Oz and John Fetterman, I'm like, there's no reason for me to vote for either one of these candidates. However, this is an important race, and I have taken the time. I know these two candidates. I'm going to choose one, all right? So I'm going to be voting on November 8th in the midterms. I need to vote between John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz. There is zero reason to vote for Dr. Mehmet Oz. Then the debate happened between Dr. Mehmet Oz and John Fetterman. So, okay, I'm like, oh, great. This is going to give me what I need. Because John Fetterman had a stroke, right? Literally, the oxygen to his brain stopped for a considerable amount of time, right? And so the question has been, did the stroke hurt Dr. Mehmet Oz? Did the stroke hurt John Fetterman to the point where he can't do the job? And I watched the debate, and here's what happened. John Fetterman has been massively impacted by that stroke. Massively impacted by that stroke, right? He cannot hear well, and he cannot speak well. He's going to be a politician. You should be able to hear well, and you should be able to speak well. I am voting for John Fetterman because of Dungeons and Dragons, and here's why, right? I don't want to vote for a person who doesn't have who, in my humble opinion, does not have the basic, functionality to be a politician. So why on earth would I vote for John Fetterman? Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeons and Dragons alone. John Fetterman had a stroke, right? And he can barely talk. He really can't talk clearly. And he can't hear what's being asked of him. So why on earth would I ever vote for him? By there are people right now in these midterms who are choosing to not debate their opponents. They're saying, I'm not going to debate my opponent. I'm going to, do something else. And, I don't need to debate my opponent. And I'm like, wait, what? And John Fetterman, okay, John Fetterman is in a position where, I was astounded. I was like, wait, he is, he is in a situation where he has where he's not fully functioning, right? But he went into the debate, and that is why we're here. What is the difference between me and my player character at the D&D table? My player character, I have a player character that killed a green dragon. Beryl, the turtle wizard, killed a green dragon. The reason he did that is he is fearless, utterly fearless, okay? And so, and basically, I have a lot to lose, so I have a lot of fear. I can lose first. The thing I fear most is not being here for my family. That puts fear in my heart. Like, if I need to fight a bear, which is the closest thing I'll ever fight to a green dragon, I'm going to be terrified, right? Whereas Beryl was able to manage his fear, right? He was fearless and he had tremendous courage, right? And actually, it's wrong to say he was fearless. He had tremendous courage. Right? And so at that point, I realized that's the one thing Fetterman has, right? He has something that is worth being lauded. He has something valuable. He has something meaningful, right? And that is courage. John Fetterman had the courage with a stroke to go debate Mehmet Oz, right? And I'm like, that is absolutely astounding. I cannot believe that he had the courage to go and debate Mehmet Oz. And that is why I was like, holy cows, Dungeons & Dragons reminded me one reason of what a politician should have, and that is courage. He has courage, and that impresses me and incredibly. That makes me feel like I know you, and I trust that you have an ounce of courage in your body. Dr. Mehmet Oz doesn't have an ounce of courage in his body. Fetterman has something that Oz doesn't have. And that's the issue is Dungeons & Dragons has taught me to value courage. And when there are no redeeming values to vote for either one of these men, one thing stands out. Fetterman has an ounce of courage, which is a full ounce more than Oz has. There is no reason in this world to vote for Oz. There is one reason and one reason only. It comes straight from Dungeons & Dragons. And because of Dungeons & Dragons, because I know the difference between me and my Beryl, my turtle wizard, I know that John Fetterman has an ounce of courage. And that is why, based on my Dungeons & Dragons experience, I will be voting for John Fetterman. And Dr. Mehmet Oz can go kick rocks on November 8th. All that's my humble opinion. Have you ever done this before? Have you ever used your Dungeons & Dragons wisdom to help you vote? I'd love to hear your story as well. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.